This is also a great way for you to, if you rather be more of a singer than a instrumentalist on a piano, this is a great way to do it, because if you follow along with the keyboard, its pitch is perfectly right on. If you match your voice's pitch to this is a great way to practice some vocal stuff as well, even though you probably won't hear Beyonce singing Mary Had a Little Lamb anytime soon. Now, all of that being said, my friends, it brings us down to this right here, which is the actual written out piece of music for Mary Had a Little Lamb for our right hand. So let's take a look at it. There's a few different things about this one that may not see in every version of this, but let's take a look here. First off, we have our treble clef. We've got our time signature. And who can remember what that symbol right there is? This is not something you'd see in every version of this song, but of course, for those of you that don't remember, let's take a look at our cheat sheet. Now, for those of you that were thinking that this symbol right here was a rest, you are correct. So let's take a look here of all the rests that we have on our cheat sheet. This one right here looks a bit like these ones here, because it's a little bit of a block. But let's see, who here can tell me which one this is? Is this a half rest or a whole rest? If you answered whole rest, you'd be correct, because this one hangs from this line here. Notice that it's attached to the line above it, not sitting on the one below it. So this is a whole rest. That means 4 beats, which of course makes sense, because this first measure should be 4 beats according to our time signature, which of course we talked about back here on our cheat sheet. So this song, they really want you to start in measure 2. This is for if you want to count off with a metronome, which we'll talk about down the road, but don't worry about that much for now. We want to focus in, boom, right there on the first measure. Now, we have 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. And if you've been paying attention here, and you've been keeping up with everything we've talked about, this right here should be quite easy to do. We're going to fill in all of the pitches across this right here. So if you guys remember here, when we took a look at, writing these pitches in for the hand here, finger 3, when we're starting off in this home position, is going to be the pitch E. 2, of course, is going to be D, and all of the 1s will be C. So I can now go ahead and just using this little bit of a translation, I can fill in all the 3s as E's, all the 2s as D's, all the 1s as C's, and end up with this. And now we've got all of the pitches filled in, we've got all of the numbers filled in, and we have all of the actual rhythm and pitch notation filled in right here on the original piece of music, which is really what we want to get used to reading, not so much numbers and letters. Those are just to help us read this. So now we can go down to the second line here. We can add the same stuff in, my friend. Now, of course, we should already know all of our 3s and 2s. Now, for our second line, we can just go ahead and we'll fill in the same thing like before. We're going to take our numbers and just fill it in. So we'll end up with something like this. So we end up with E, D, C, D, E, 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 D, D, E, D, C to end it. And then we have another one of these rests, which hopefully you remember is a whole rest because it takes up a whole measure, 4 beats of sound. All right, so this right here matches with the paper we looked at last time, which of course follows this. But there is something I want to change here. This third time that we say little lamb right here, where it says E, it does say that here in our music. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, all E's. But I want to change this actually, because we're not little kids. We're gonna add in that 4th note. You'll notice that we don't have 4 notes here. We only have our E's, our C's, and our D's. So I'm going to take a little adjustment here and change this up to what I did is I went through and I changed these last 2 notes on the first line to G's instead of E's. This actually matches up more with the one that we heard growing up as a kid. And this, of course, gives us our 4th pitch, which is G, which is, of course, going to be played by our pinky finger, which is finger number 5. So now that we know all of the different pitches, we know all of the fingers to play each pitch, and hopefully we have memorized which finger, of course, matches each number, we're really close to being able to go over to the keyboard and be able to play this. But there's just 2 things we should talk about before we do that, which is, of course, going to be our rhythms. Now, all of the rhythms in this song are either a quarter note or a half note, which of course means if it's a quarter note, 1 beat a piece. So if you were to tap your foot at a speed like maybe like this, each one of these taps is equal to a quarter note. Whereas the half notes, the ones that are not colored in, are 2 beats each. So like little lamb, you should let that one ring out for 2 beats. Same here, same here. And lastly, down here, the very end of the song, we do have a whole note, which if you guys remember from your cheat sheet, is 4 beats. You would let that ring out for 4 beats. Now, if you're going to be using a real keyboard where you're pressing down with your fingers, this will be a little bit easier to keep that up with. If you're using the touchscreen laptop website that I showed you, of course, the virtual piano, that might not work as well because it just kind of rings anyways. But just that's something to keep in mind. It's 4 beats until whatever's next, which of course here's a rest. 2 beats until whatever's next here. And each one of these are just 1 beat a piece for the quarter notes. All right, that's the rhythm. But the last thing we're going to talk about, if this is confusing to you at all still, this should make it really easy. We're going to break this down into what we call phrases. Kind of like when you read a paragraph. Let's just think this whole song is a paragraph. Good paragraph should have multiple punctuated sentences in it. So it's not just one gigantic run-on sentence that does not end and just keeps going on and on and on, and there's no beginning or end, and it's just really hard to listen to, kind of like the way I just talked. So we're going to break this into 4 separate phrases, and I'm going to color code them. So I've gone through here and I've color-coded, I've highlighted our first phrase, just 2 measures long. First phrase, of course, would be E, D, C, D, E, E, E. So when we go to learn the song, we'll treat that like the first sentence of a paragraph. We'll go ahead and learn that before we even worry about going on to our next phrase, which will be the next 2 measures, which I will color code in pink, which is just D, 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 E, and then with our pinky, G, G, with our pinky finger, which will now bring us down to the next line. Now, of course, this third phrase is identical to our first phrase, E, D, C, D, E, E, E. So I'm just going to go ahead and just highlight this in the same color as the first phrase. So just like the first phrase, this third phrase here is the same as the first, E, D, C, D, E, 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 which brings us to our last 2 measures. We'll just kind of forget about these rests here. Yes, they're there, but obviously, they don't make any sound. So we're going to focus these on the last 2 measures. This is obviously, it starts the same with 2 Ds, but then this gets a little different. We don't have a half note. We have 2 quarter notes here, D, D, E, D, C. So we're going to label this one in a different color, and this will be our third different phrase, or I should say the 4th phrase of the whole song. And so the song will end with D, D, E, D, C. Now this right here is a nice way. We've broken the whole song down. We've analyzed it. We've got all of the particular pitches written in. We've got all of the finger numbers, fingerings for the keyboard written in. We've also color-coded it by what we call phrase. So it's almost like you say one line, you say a different line, you say the same thing you said first line, and then you say something different. Again, there's only 3 phrases to learn here. So let's go over. We're going to hop onto a keyboard, and we're going to go ahead and learn this. So just stick around, guys. We're going to get around to play on the keyboard in our next little video here. So stick around. I'll see you guys in a bit.